It was the spirit of solitude what drove Jesus to the desert. And if you've ever been in the desert, particularly in the Middle East, most likely you have noticed an element of exotic beauty in the apparent softness of the sand, in the tranquility of the vista, and in the morning light, allowing everything to glow with a pink golden tint. But don't be fooled. There is an element of danger in the desert: the lack of water, the mirages, and the loneliness. Jesus' temptation in the desert comes to us as a great warning. Notice how it takes place after his baptism, to signify the challenges and demands that those who are baptized are to have. And in Jesus' temptations, the very same elements mentioned above are described in the desert, and they are present. The temptations presented by the gospel writer are alluring, appealing, and at the same time, dangerous and deceiving. The first temptation is of a basic and fundamental need: bread. He is invited to use his power to turn stones into bread. This is a man who has been fasting and abstaining himself from food for a series of days. The distraction is too easy. The second temptation takes Jesus to the top of the temple and invites him to do a spectacular act by throwing himself down and being rescued by angels. It's tempting the Lord to prove who he is, to display his might. Finally, he is tempted with the glory, honors, acolytes, and powers from this world. But there is only one catch. He is to adore the vanity, the emptiness, and the empty promises of the opposite of God's icon. In other words, to just like Adam, break the imago Dei, the image of God, and to become also part of the fragmented and divided darkness. These temptations are based on two fundamental principles. The first encourages Jesus to put his own needs and interests first and foremost. It is an invitation for self-gratification and self-recognition. The second one is to reject God's plan by becoming his own God. The third temptation invites him to live for the moment and for himself. Jesus continued being tempted all along the Gospels, and those temptations have continued through the whole history of humanity and the church. What is more, they are being offered to humanity and to us today. We too are being tempted. In our jobs, we may have been invited to be utterly dishonest or to, on purpose, step on others for a raise or a promotion. Perhaps in our own households, we have behaved as sole little gods and goddesses, not allowing our spouse and other members of the family to breathe and to grow. Maybe we are constantly allured to satisfy our appetites for food, for drinking, for attention or recognition, without being able to see not the appetites, but the needs of others. Lent is a time for a new life in Christ. In permitting himself to experience temptation, Jesus sets the example of coming face to face with the dilemma of choosing between good and evil. By joining Jesus in the desert, especially during Lent, we focus our attention upon the things that really matter in life. Prayer, fasting, almsgiving are the vehicles to be with Jesus. But at the same time, we must remember to avoid those heavy-duty acts of mortification that takes us to sacrifices quite beyond our limits. We may well end up becoming everyone else's penance or becoming our own self-creation and image of what is righteous. This season, let us simply walk with Jesus so that in this act of solidarity, we can discover God's divine will and develop the wisdom to understand it and the courage to cooperate with Him. Let us simply walk with Jesus.